a municipal building and sent to the Star Ledger and also News Record in last year as well. So Chairperson Kripe.
Here.
Yes. Mayor Daffis.
Here.
Assistant Administrator Barnett.
Here.
Awesome. And then our special guest here, Administrator Mr. Schuster, and our CFO, Mr. Kaloje. Thank you for joining as well.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll first start off with, as we traditionally do, with the chief reporter narrative for those whose first time being here. Essentially, this is when our chief, Sally, provides just a narrative of things that happened in the last month. Some stuff will overlap with the metrics, but it's really just some things that he can talk about. So I yield the floor. Oh, I don't see, where does the chief go? He's
Right here.
Right here. Okay, I didn't see you. All right. The floor is yours. The floor is yours, chief.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So in November, knock on wood, the robberies have, we haven't had a robbery. Well, we had a robbery in November, but not in December. Thefts are still creeping up, especially with the holidays coming and the package thefts and shopliftings and still unsecured vehicles. So we're still getting a lot of unsecured vehicles, stolen vehicles. You know, so we have different orders out. I don't want to give away our tactical advantage out there, but we are out there, you know, looking at the stats we have and the data of where these things are happening, and we are placing our officers at those locations. So it seems to be working. We continue to do that, and each week I meet with my staff and we decide where the crime wave is going, and that's where we put additional officers to. So that's what we're working on now throughout the holidays. So that's the narrative. So I'm gonna move on to police metrics. Okay. So first okay, I had the overtime report. I don't know if you want me to go through that first. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so as you can see, we have a decrease in overtime hours. Police overtime hours decreased 747. We've been decreasing every month. So we have been doing pretty good with that. Also, the only small increase in watch commanders and dispatch. So that's our watch commanders, that's our lieutenants and dispatchers. As you can see, very small increase, 65 total. But in overtime, but in all, between the police overtime and dispatch overtime, we're down 682. There's a decrease. Okay, so and then you move on to police OT, 18.54% decrease, and an increase with dispatch. I just talked about dispatch and dispatch overtime 911 increase, but in total again decrease 13.74% decrease in total cost. The things that we do, we move up a little bit in is, of course, you know, salaries continue, you know, each year continue to go up. And as you can see, we had a few officers out, which created overtime. So that's the overtime for the department.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor Daffis, Committee Person Kripe, any questions? OT.
No questions for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both. Chief, thank you. Good story. It continues to be, you know, consistent and appreciate the efforts here. I mean, keeping this cost down is imperative. And net, you're showing that goes what's good. And I know that the contracts have put challenges in there. So it's good, a good story when you look at it year over year. Awesome. Let's go ahead and pivot over to the monthly report, the October report. And
Okay.
Feel free to highlight whatever you like in this report.
Right. So October, we did have 2 robberies that are unsolved. As in all robberies, we work with different agencies because a lot of these robberies are the same as you would see in like Irvington or Newark. So we do work with those other agencies, South Orange. So we do have 2 outstanding robberies from October. One was a strong arm and one was a handgun was presented, and that was on Boynton Avenue, Parker Avenue. We did have a town hall meeting discussing those robberies. So that was October, and again, November, we had the one on the west side of town. But since then, we haven't had any since we started these new details in these areas. So again, that seems to be working. We had in October, we had one aggravated assault that was domestic violence related. We had one burglary in October, and we had again the larceny and thefts. So in October we had 18. That's package thefts again, shoplifting, rummaging through vehicles, and we had 6 stolen vehicles, all unsecured.
Mm.
So we, again, month after month, we put out the education, lock your vehicles, don't leave them running. We still get them though. So we'll continue to do that. And those are the major crimes we have had in October. Again, November we had the one, and then recently we had 2 major crimes this month. I really don't want to get into the details of those. One was domestic related, and one was more of like a medical type situation. So, but they're major. But I'm gonna leave it at that for those.
Understood. And ongoing investigations, so obviously
Right.
can't speak on those. I would say what's interesting is that we look at, the first 3 quarters of 2022, right, versus and then a year to date, was telling us that, this month or October of 2022 versus October of 2021, you see that there's either a 0 or a negative variance. In other words, less activity of the UCR versus 2021. And if you look at the year to date, though, those same numbers are either flat or up, which shows me that the initiatives that you and obviously Chief Duvall at the time, which you all are implementing, is starting to trend down net. So because even though there's an inflection of higher variance annually, I'm seeing a lower variance monthly. So we continue, on that trend for November and December. This is the beginning of Q4. Then potentially that year-over-year change, the variance, the positive percentage will go down because you have 2 months. If you continue on this less than the previous month trend for November and December. So in other words, obviously we can't control everything, but it's great to see that the effort and energy of the team is resulting, at least in the snapshot of the month, of less activity than it was the year before, and hopefully that'll continue for the rest of Q4. So those are my thoughts. Committee person Cripe for Mayor Daffis.
No, I'm just still frustrated at the number of people who still leave their vehicles unlocked and running sometimes. I know that Chief and your team have actually put a lot of energy and effort into that, but short of a miracle, I can't figure this out.
Right.
Why people do this.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, if you look at I have some of them pulled up, but like if you look at the month of the month, beginning of the year, like you'll see those significant spikes that we've had in theft and burglary as well. Like they were high, like in the summer months, and now they're tapering off. So I mean, maybe next year, an idea would be to maybe have a new report where you show every month, maybe. So you can show the difference of 21 and 22 for that month, but then also have a revolving trend showing that, so the cumulative makes sense. Because I can look at this and I can do a quick analysis and say, okay, what this is showing me is that the initial spikes that made the annual numbers higher occurred in the middle and beginning of the year. Now they're tapering off. That's a statistical trait. So that's good news for our community and good news for us. So thank you, Chief. Mayor Daffis, any questions, comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'm heartened by that analysis, but I just want to, these stats represent things that happen to people and our people. right, in our community. And those numbers are still troublesome, right? There is a trend here that has not gone away. It is going down, and I have all faith and confidence in the ability of our chief and his strategies that he has put into place. They are working, and hopefully as we continue tracking month by month into the new year, we will see it tapering off even more. But I just don't want to minimize, and I'm not suggesting anyone was, it's just my personal remarks related to this, is to ensure that we remain very sensitive and very aware and honest about the fact that there is a troubling crime trend that we're all working collaboratively to combat and to address, because these are real incidents that happen to real people, our neighbors. We don't want to minimize that. That's all.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, one aggravated assault is one too many, right? So, but I mean, we're also looking at it statistically as we were supposed to do, and we can humanize it 100%. I agree with you, but if you take the human factor out of it, no disrespect to the people impacted, the trend is positive, and that's where we want to go. Yeah, cool. Any other questions for Chief before we move on? All right, Ms. Barnett, any questions for you?
Not at this moment, thank you.
All right, we're going to move on here in the agenda as we've covered overtime, DCR report, and activity. So it's a discussion item, Chief, that I know that you became cognizant of in the transition period, and just wanted to yield the floor to you to see had any thoughts or initial thoughts and ideas regarding the middle school teacher parking situation. I know some information was provided to you, but obviously we're here to just listen to your thoughts and then help make an assessment and go from there.
Right. So the Maplewood Middle School parking, I know has been an issue for a lot of years. Like these old buildings we have, and bigger the building stays the same, but the population grows and more people are trying to, drop their kids off and park and everything else. So, but the location stays the same. So, I talked to the principal. I talked to our parking enforcement. I went to the school myself in the morning to observe and drive the location. So Burnett Street, I think, Chief DeVal's idea of making it one way in the morning was a good idea, because I remember the times when it was going both ways and kids were crossing the street and cars were coming and everything else. So that kind of reduced that a lot. So I think that should stay in place. The problem is that sometimes, and even when I was there, I was kind of like down the street watching. Some people try to make a K-turn and turn back the other way, and usually we have one officer there and they're unable to enforce that because they're on the corner crossing kids. So so the officer will get there in the morning, barricade it so it's a one way, and put their car on that corner so cars can't come down the other way, and they'll cross the kids at we call B&B, Burnett and Baker. So then hopefully cars that are coming down Baker turn on Burnett, one way up towards Maple, drop their kids off and keep moving. But sometimes, every once in a while, one will turn, K-turn, come back down the other way, causing a problem. And then on Burnett Street, across the street from the school, it's parking for teachers. So teachers with permits are allowed to park on that side of the street, which I think is okay. It's not a problem. Only becomes a problem when these cars K-turn. Also on Burnett and Maple, on that corner, that intersection, parents drop their kids off right in that corner. So that causes a backup, and you have that one way coming up, and it's dangerous, and they're right in the intersection, and you let the kids off and they drive off. And Maple is a small street between Burnett and Donnell. On the side that's closest to the school is parking for teachers, which is allowed and which is fine too. The other side of the street, I believe commuters can park there, along with teachers. Burnett, from Maple down to South Mountain, is a long strip. There's plenty of parking there. Also Salter from Maple to South Mountain is a long strip. I think the way they have it now is that they're trying to make, accommodate the teachers so they can park closest to the school, which is okay. So the permitted parking is Maple on the side where the school is, Burnett on the opposite side of the school, and then Salter, like the first few parking spaces are permit parking for the teachers, which I understand because they want the teachers to have, I think when this was first designed, many years ago, that was the intention. So the teachers can have like closer parking. And I think, Salter and Burnett, there's plenty of parking there. It just depends on how far you want to walk, but then you have other people that park there. So you have people that work in the school during the day, but might be a substitute teacher, might be a specialized teacher. They do not have permits, but what they have to do is they have to go into the school and get permission to park. They have a permission list they fill out, the secretary fills out, puts their license plates on that permission slip, and they send it to the police department. So when the police department are doing their checks for the permits, these people on the license plate will not get a ticket, but these people have to park on Burnett Street. And from what I learned is that came from the school. The school made that rule. So if they get on this permission slip and they're visitors, they can park on Burnett Street. They can't park on Salter. So if they park on Salter, our parking enforcement are issuing them tickets because they're in the wrong parking space. So I think that becomes an issue as well. So, my thing is, to me, I don't see the problem with them parking on Salter either. I mean, Salter has plenty of spaces there. Also, I don't know, this might be controversial, but Maple, if commuters didn't park there, because commuters take those spots most of the day, if you made that all teacher parking, you would have more spots close to the school that I think they're requesting. I first went down to Nell. The Nell from Baker all the way back to the dead end is all commuter parking. I went there early in the morning, and from Maple, if you look at the map, from Maple on Denell going back to the dead end, there was no commuters parking there. It was probably like 20 open spaces. So I was thinking maybe that might be a possibility, but then I went back later to that day, and all those spaces were full. So commuters are taking them and just coming a little later. So that's not a possibility. But I'm just thinking Maple from Denell to Burnett. I don't know, if that could be all teachers. I don't know, what the thing is with commuters, if they do need those spots or not. I think that could give them more spaces. But also Salter, up to 8 Salter. If you look on the map, 8 Salter is permit parking for the teachers. And then that behind 8 going towards South Mountain is either 2-hour parking, is 2-hour parking. So let me see, Salter permit parking from 8 Salter, 2-hour parking, and or permit parking. So it's 2-hour parking. If you have a permit, you can also park and stay longer than 2 hours on Salter. So as you can see, there's plenty of parking there. I know the complaint was not enough parking, but to me, it looks like there's enough parking on Burnett and Salter. So as far as when I was talking about the, sometimes we get complaints of people blocking driveways, the K-turn, in the intersection of Maple Ave and Burnett, dropping kids off. the police department, when we first set this up, that blocking that street off, we had a lot of enforcement in the beginning. I think we got a little lax with the enforcement. We don't, during that time when school is in, we are kind of thin because we are covering a lot of school corners, but we can do periodic enforcement. So I think if we do some periodic enforcement, that might clean that up. People might not be so much to, do those kind of things. So we do like, once a week, sometimes twice a week. When we have when we start doing that, I think that will clean some of that up. So, so that's my observation and, possible quick. Oh, one more thing. If we're talking with the principal, when the permits are issued, you have to go through town hall to get the permits issued. But I spoke to my parking enforcement, and they told me that Dahlia Bolden School and Tuscan School, they make their own permits. So they make a permit, and they give them to their teachers, and then they put them in their cars themselves. So I don't know if that's a possibility.
That's what I got to say about all this. This is a hot mess. Making their own permits. Come on now.
Yeah, and I was on mute. I was saying this, Dean. I was saying what you were saying. Like that's the first I heard of schools, making their own permits and not being consistent. Bailey, you want to flag that, because I think we had a conversation with Ms. Fritzen about that like this week. So Chief, to make sure I'm clear, or we're all clear as a committee, you're suggesting the possibility of converting these commuter parking spaces to teachers, right? Which would be the incremental, right? Because right now, although they were empty, the 20 you saw, and then you came back, they were full. These right now are earmarked for commuters and not for teacher parking, correct?
That's right. That's right. That's when they were empty though. So when I saw they were full, I was,
Yeah, I would argue, and it's an assumption, so I could be completely wrong that, and I can firsthand confirm that people are going back to work, 2 or 3 days a week, including myself and my family. But everyone's not going back to work every day. That's a fact. It's like 3 days max, and by Friday it tapers off, and actually a lot of Tuesday, Thursday activity. And I think because there is I won't say an abundance, but there's some of a surplus of parking accessibility, because we're not at full return to work and everyone coming in 5 days a week. People are taking spaces that they traditionally would not be able to get if they in a pre-COVID. So I bring that up to say that if we were, as a township committee, to say, okay, let's take these 20 or 30 theoretical spaces that my arrow's on and convert them to non-commuter parking for 2023 and make these teacher parking for 2023, that's 20 or 30 spaces. And that, to me, would assess some of the concerns in those email threads we all received or been copied on regarding the lack of parking for the teachers, and something we haven't thought about. And I think it's palatable because, it's a section, it's close enough to the school. It's a section here, minimum, in terms of Salter, which is not a bad either, but, that's a second option. I think smaller, sorry. But, I kind of like that idea, as a potential, whatever the number of spaces are, alleviating some of the concerns we heard about. There's no spaces, the teacher, parents, and loved ones, and no space around this area. And then, of course, what you mentioned. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Committee person Kripe and Mayor Daffis, any thoughts on one of those solutions?
No, I think it's brilliant, actually, looking at Donnell as a place for the teachers to park. Would there be any way of doing it as a timed thing? Because like you were saying, people are returning back to work. Many people are also not returning back to work where they're there at their desk at 8 a.m. They're going in at 10, sometimes 11 o'clock for a half day or a later day start. So maybe have it available for teachers up until, I don't know, 10 o'clock. And then after that point, it's open for commuters, so long as they've got a parking permit from the township. That way you kind of use it dual purpose. The teachers may fill it all up and then, oh, well, those spots are gone. But if teachers don't fill them up, then they'll be available for commuters.
Yeah, that's a good one, a committee person, right? Because, MMS starts, I'm trying to remember, 8-ish, 8.
Yeah, it's like 8:05, I think.
8:05, right? So they have to be, before 8:05, they have to be in their, they should theoretically be, in the classroom. So if we said something where like, teachers only from, 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. or 8:30, whatever everyone decides, then subsequently, then we could, then if they don't take those spaces after 8 a.m. or 8:15 or 8:30, whatever, then they're open for commuters who take the 8:30 or take the 9:03, which I know those trains very well. So, or the 8:15 or 8:45 to Hoboken. I like that idea because now we're maximizing the space, but we're also providing first passage, if you will, to teachers.
Right.
I love it. I actually would align with you on that.
And as for parents, as a former MMS parent, hey, we knew park on Salter. We all knew park on Salter down the road. You're just not going to get in front of the school. You're not going to get close. You're going to walk. So suck it up and deal. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think all of these are great ideas. I just think we need to coordinate with administration,
Mhm.
the clerk's office, because it could be, Liz is going to have a better idea of which of these spots are spoken for in terms of permits. Because as you all noted, it could be that they are spoken for, but people are going into work later or just half a day on those days they actually have to go in. We all know that people are being enticed back by a lunch or something like that. So they literally go in for a couple hours and come right back. So let's coordinate all of this with the clerk's office and with administration to see where there are available spots and then take it from there.
Yeah, no, I like that. I would say, unless my memory served me wrong, when you get a commuter parking badge, you're not assigned a space. You can park either on Donnell or Oak. So we can park. So these aren't technically
Assigned.
to people, open. So if I'm a commuter, I can park on Donnell on Monday, or I can park over on Oakview on Tuesday. So Liz will know the value, but she won't be able to articulate, you know what I'm saying, Mayor, like it's not assigned. It's like you have a permit to park anywhere, not necessarily on Donnell.
Right. We'll just have an idea of capacity. It's not the assignment, but of capacity. So if we're way low on permits as per traditional levels, then heck yeah, then we can just reserve some for teachers only during certain times, because we know that there's sufficient capacity elsewhere. But yeah, that will give us an idea of what we can do and when.
Perfect. You know what I'll do? I'll put this as a discussion item on for next Tuesday. So we can have all our colleagues, provide their input as well. But I think Chief, it's a good solution, and appreciate your assessment here. So we'll go from there. But since we're on the subject of schools, how are we doing with? This is reminding me of a few other meetings. How are we doing with our crossing guard issues? And I know we had some challenges over at Seth Boyden. Any update in regards to incremental crossing guards hired, or I know we shifted some people from that's the second shift, if I remember correctly, over to do crossing guard activity. Is there any news or anything update or any concerns or issues or thoughts? I know we did some changing too in the terms of the direction of traffic.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I kind of punted that to Captain Malloy, so I'm not
Okay.
I haven't looked into that, but our officers are covering the more important intersections that we have to cover, and so I mean we still have this it's pretty much the status quo with the crossing guards right now.
Okay, no, that's good to know. I know that, we had some, I'm gonna slide over here, oh, not too far. Yeah, there was some, yeah, let's definitely put that as an action item to find out if there's any news on that situation, because I know that even this morning in the engineering plan public works meeting, there was a conversation about ways with the traffic flow, and our engineers, the experts, if you will, they came up with an idea, which, unless it got, Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I had to go leave the call, but they're going to look at doing something more permanent there, the traffic flow in January. I believe that's what they said, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So where we have the cones right now, which, people disregard, as you all know, on occasion here and there, we got to go back out there and put them in. We're going to do something permanent there. The engineers and the chief of police have reported, and we've heard from parents as well, that some of the measures that we have taken there have definitely helped. And the crossing guards themselves, the most important voice here, has said that, the no left turn, for instance, among other things, has really been a game changer in terms of their feeling safer, and the children and parents who are crossing feeling safer. So we're just going to take what we have as a temporary and make it permanent, which will require some reshaping, if you will, for lack of a technical term, of the curbing there. As those details come, we will share them with everyone, of course.
Yeah, and Spring and Burnett, the crossing guards on Burnett and Tuscan. Spring and Burnett, we have an officer there that crosses the kids, and my day sergeant and that officer there said that they like the way it is with the no left turn. So they agree. Everything is a lot better and smoother with traffic and everything else.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to watch people try to slow down and look to see, can I get between the cones? And then the people behind them just lay on their horns, get going, you can't.
Okay, cut corners, literally.
They're just trying to say, can I get my car in there? And they're like, meh, and like,
well, that you gotta love communal policing in that regard. So, man, crazy. Awesome. Well, Chief, thank you. And also I would say that, let's definitely follow up with Captain Malloy and get a little intel there. I see that our Community Board of Police rep is here. So Alexis, how are you? Good to see you. I'm going to yield the floor to you to see if you had any report from earlier this month's meeting, which was there in person. I think you and I are the only one who weren't there in person. And any takeaways that you want to communicate to the public safety community and the greater public?
Well, we just at our last meeting talked in part about our priorities for the coming year, and our ongoing recruiting efforts for new members. Another person announced their resignation from the board recently. That was announced at the last meeting. And we also talked about moving forward with reinstituting training on police interactions with people on the autism spectrum. And so I reported back on some information I gathered from a program at Children's Specialized. And so because it was a relatively low cost, we thought that we should try to move forward with recommending that, which everybody seemed enthusiastic about. And I think that's pretty much it. I mean, the priorities for the coming year, continuing to look at training, also thinking about the police role in schools, and also continuing to think about communicating with the community about resources they might turn to beyond the police department for certain public safety issues.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. And also, since you brought up, we do have a couple of openings now, for the board, and it's a great board. And so, just publicly communicating anyone who's interested, anyone who knows of anyone who might be potentially interested, please reach out to City Hall, the township, and we'll move forward with that potential process, because the more many hands make light work. So yes. We appreciate that. Yeah. So Alexis, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I was late. I was on the public side by mistake for a while because I misread Bailey's email with the correct link. So sorry for being a few minutes late, but I was listening the whole time.
Well, don't worry. It's all good. First world problems, as they like to say.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. All right, great. We are now at agenda item number 4, which is our operational and capital 2023 budget. I'm going to, as I always have my 1,000 screens, I'm going to pull over, my deeper dive into our budget, and I know I sent you a heads up because I had questions, but I'm going to yield the floor over to our administrator, as Mr. Schuster, as well as Mr. Kaloje. And if this is too much, because you know how I like to really get down and I dig into the numbers, happy to let someone else share their screen and share the pre-allocation before I got my hands under the hood. So Mr. Kaloje, if you want me to stop sharing my screen and not show you my 4-year run rates and my variances from actual to budgeted, we can change that out too. And all this was sent to everybody on the committee in an email a couple of days ago with these line items highlighted. So Mr. Kaloje, what would you like to do? Would you like to share your screen, or Mr. Schuster, and share the original document, or you want to work off this when I minimize salary and wages because we don't talk about that in open public?
Yeah. I think, Joe, I think we can work off of this as long as it is the latest version that he used. Does that work for you?
Yes, this would work for me. But before we continue, can we back up to the teachers parking for a second?
Yep, sure. Let's. We can just talk about it. Yes.
Yeah, we just need to talk about it because I think the problem is a little deeper than the schools printing their own parking permits. Pre-pandemic, our revenue was $20,000, a little over $20,000 in revenue for teacher parking permits. It fell off the map in 20 because we had a pandemic and schools weren't open. It fell off the map in 21. Schools eventually opened, they just never got permits. It has fallen off the map this year in 2022 also. So not only are they printing their own permits, but it's not producing any revenue for us. So this is going to be a coordinated effort with administration and the clerk's office to find out just how bad this issue is, and if we can even recover some of the money that apparently they're giving out permits. Who knows if they're charging and keeping the money, or if they're not even charging? But it certainly has a budgetary impact for us because we typically use it as an anticipated revenue. So if we can just add that to the ongoing list of teacher parking permits, please.
Duly noted, and definitely will be a discussion item on Tuesday. And Mr. Schuster, we should probably give Ms. Fritzen a heads up because we'll be asking a lot of questions of her regarding where we are. And then, like as Mayor Daff has said, I mean, it was news to all of us that there was this unique new way of allocating permits.
Yeah, well, what other permits are they giving out over there? I'm curious now.
That makes probably 8 of us on this call right now. So.
All right. Well, but before we delve into this, let me I'll give my opening speech, which I've done at every subcommittee meeting, just to let everyone know where we are. This is the first pass at a draft budget. I have not made any cuts or any recommendations on cuts, on any of these things. I like everyone to see the first numbers, up front, so you can see not only, where we stand right now, but also know what things may be cut as we move forward. As a general item, and I know I've said this a number to you already at the various subcommittees. As far as personnel, I'm concentrating on the personnel we have now rather than looking to expand and have new employees. Although we had several requests for new employees, they're only, I have been saying 1, but I've been corrected. There is actually 2 that we're going to be proposing. One is the crisis intervention social worker, which is going to be budget neutral because it's funded by the dedicated cannabis revenue. And the second would be an inspector for fire inspections, since we're breaking that out along with the SEFD new configuration. there will be proposed for a salary audit, so we can go ahead and right size a lot of the salaries, which are on the low side. This is for non-union employees. Unions will be handled through negotiations. None of what I just talked about really impacts the police department as much. Mostly they're unionized, and there's been no request for new personnel over there. So that's where we stand right now. We love to hear the feedback from the various subcommittees. After we hear that, we're going to circle back, look at some areas which we might be able to cut costs, look at some capital projects that may or may not be necessary, and then take that forward through the township committee. So that's where we stand right now. And other than that, I'll just turn it over to Joe if you want to just hit the line items which have been highlighted, and give any other feedback on things of note.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schuster. The only thing that is missing from here, Mr. McGehee, is OEM. We had to move it from fire department to police department because of the merger, and we still obviously have our own OEM.
I have it. Oh, there it's down there. Sorry.
There it is. Okay, it's still there. That's 75,000. We'll start out with that because that 75,000 is a typo. It should be 7,500.
Boom.
So now we can scroll back up and concentrate on the bigger portions of the budget.
That
Thank
was
you, Joe. Thank you.
easy. That's question number one down.
All right.
So these figures, and the chief will be able to speak in greater detail, but I was looking at what you had on the screen compared to what we have as our evolving document, and the numbers are current. So we're pretty good on what we're looking at. Essentially, the training expenses went up because I think the chief said that he was expanding some sort of training program and was going to need some additional funding in order to achieve that. Police vehicles, historically, we have budgeted in our operating budget to purchase vehicles as well as in our capital budget to purchase vehicles. Historically, in the operating budget, we utilized this to purchase used vehicles. Usually they came from Milburn, and they were, pretty much, the little old lady driving to church on Sunday kind of vehicles. So that it worked out well for us. They have not, over the last few years, had any vehicles available to us. I'm sure there's supply chain issues that's going on. So this number is reflective of trying to just replace the normal 2 or 3 vehicles that we would pick up out of operating. The other contractual services, the chief would have to explain a little better because I just remember having to pay for it. And then our communications equipment, I think, is revolving around either trying to sync our radios and or our new console that we got last year. But again, the chief would be able to speak specifically to why these items increased.
And jumping back to the training expense, I believe the big jump in there is the request from the Community Board on Policing for specific training, and that's why that line item has increased.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, and the training was initially included as a capital expense, so we're shifting that initial request from capital into the operating line item to reflect that accurately.
Beautiful. Great. No, great narrative for me. Mayor Daffis, committee person Cripe, good narrative. And I remember the vehicles because after Ida, we lost 2 vehicles for sure, and we never were able to replace them. When you go to DPW, well, they used to be there for weeks or months. You could see the water and the sewage in them. They were sitting there last year this time. So.
Yeah, and plus they raised all the prices to the vehicles.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Oh, inflation is serious. Yeah.
Right.
Now, are we looking at also making these vehicles like Chief's car? Jimmy's car?
No. What do you mean? A new chief car?
The new e-vehicles.
Oh yeah. One's actually already paid for. So one's on his way.
Okay, no. That was it. The $75. The 75,000 moving to 7,500 made me smile. That's all I had.
Yeah, I didn't put it in red because I figured just highlight it yellow. Mayor Daffis, I know I can see your eyes. You're steadily looking. Any questions?
Yeah, no, I'm good. The training expenses, I think, is really an important investment. We've heard from our officers as well, our rank and file, that they could use additional training on how to deal with certain vulnerabilities and sensitivities that we're becoming more and more aware of. And we really should invest more in training. And former Chief Duvall was also a big proponent of that. As you recall, during his tenure, you know, we went from like very little, $1,000 for training to, you know, 3 or 4 times that amount. So I'd like to see this number here. I don't, you know, when we do a second and third pass, I think that number might go down just a little bit, only because one of the trainings that was proposed to us through the Community Board on Police, based on some research that one of the members on the board had done, had come in at a pretty high number. And since then, we have figured out that we can receive the same training from another organization or outfit that would be much cheaper than the $25,000 or $30,000 that it was coming in initially. So that number will go down a little bit, but I do think that we should definitely invest in additional training.
Yeah, and also with anticipated, you know, people get promoted, they're gonna need training to, you know, to learn their new positions, including me. So I've been going to trainings and, you know, our next sergeant, our next, you know, everything else moving up.
Perfect. I had only one additional question. I'll highlight it. Just looking for some clarification here on the 911 dispatching, because, you know, the number I always look at is requested versus actual. And so, like, obviously the vehicles made sense, the training, we discussed this, but keen to hear about what this relates to and why, you know, we're still looking to get 30K more, you know, consistently. I mean, we've been at 50s here, so there's a run rate that's high enough but yet we didn't spend all the money. So just wanted to kind of get a little more of a narrative there, and then I'm good.
Yeah, so, you know, this is my first time doing a budget, so I kind of try to keep everything status quo and maintaining it. But a lot of stuff is contracts we have, you know, that we have to pay our monthly fee, and, you know, contracted with, you know, different agencies and things like that we have to keep, you know, keep everything running.
Okay. Yeah, because
I think I'm sorry. The other thing, Mr. McGehee, is that if we're strictly looking at the actuals from 2022, this document was produced back in September. So the actual for October and November haven't been captured yet. September may not have been captured yet at that point in time, and obviously December for sure. So when we get out the next round of budget document, we will be at least up through November, and so those numbers will change.
That's perfect. Thank you, CFO Joe. That helps. That will shorten the variance between the two numbers, which makes a lot of sense. That's a great narrative. So I'm comfortable there, and Mayor Davis and Committee Person Kripe will take it from here.
And before you close up, Chief Sally had a question about the safety supplies and equipment line item, which has gone up, maybe a little about almost doubled versus our actual. Do you have any information on that?
Safety supplies and equipment.
Yeah, we can just talk a little bit about what's in that first of all.
Yeah, so our safety supplies. Hold on 1 second. I got it right here.
Would that be like high visibility, uniforms and such stuff like that?
Yeah, so it would be just normal equipment we have, vests and different things such as that.
Just vests, or would it also be like traffic control devices and anything along those lines?
Right. Cones, barricades.
Okay.
All the physical things we use for traffic and and various things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shute.
Yeah, a lot of our cones, seem to walk away a lot, but
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Thank you, Chief. All right. Well, that concludes. Any additional questions before I close the budget tab? Any questions? Anyone else?
I just think it should be noted that Chief Sally and his work in order to keep overtime down is exemplary. And the fire department could probably use a lesson from you, because we're actually going to have another budget transfer next week to the tune of $225,000 to keep pace with what's been going on at the fire department. So thank you, Chief. The CFO thanks you for taking care of overtime.
I'll duly noted, Mr. Closey. I'll take that to the SCFD's next meeting next week or 2 weeks. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And now we're at the public comment. So, Ms. Barnett, do we have anyone in the public who's here or would like to make a statement this time?
Yes, we have one member of the public with their hand raised. I'm going to move Allison Murphy over to a panelist. Allison, once you're moved over, you'll be able to speak and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for letting me speak tonight. I am a South Orange resident and a Seth Boyden parent. Not my first time at this meeting. Thank you, Mr. McGeehee, for bringing up the Seth Boyden intersections. I have a couple of things. I'm going to try and keep this brief. First, I just want to, on behalf of the Seth Boyden PTA, express our belated but sincere condolences to the entire town council and the police department on the passing of Chief Duvall. Last time I was on a call, he was with us and we were all very, very devastated about the loss. So I just wanted to say that because we really appreciate all the work he had been doing with us on the intersections. As you all know, I have a log for parents to report any issues with crossing guards. Good news is I have nothing to report since our last call. So it sounds like things are going great. Appreciate that the officers are there. The one thing that I did want to talk about, and I was really happy to hear, I wish that I had been able to be on the engineering call today. I would have called into that if I had known that was happening. Happy to hear that there's ongoing look at and study of the changes at the crosswalks, specifically that Tuscan, Burnett, Springfield intersection. There was an incident on December 1st, and I think that a couple parents likely have emailed some of the members of the town council and police department. There was a semi truck that drove up onto the sort of large pedestrian crosswalk near Tuscan. And it was pretty terrifying. I'm just going to briefly read an email from a parent. She said, right after dismissal of the 4-hour day on Thursday, as I was approaching the intersection with my child, a semi truck was in the wrong lane on Burnett. We watched as it drove onto the median and took out 2 trees and the new signage. It was terrifying to watch, knowing that children and families were present. Our crossing guard told me she had to jump out of the way. This intersection continues to be problematic, and this incident appeared to be totally out of control. I snapped a photo, but I kept moving because the scene felt very unsafe. Several parents witnessed it from the other side of Tuscan and were terrified. There are many children walking alone as they do every day, and we're all thinking of them as the driver was not in control of the vehicle. And it's obvious that we can't control every driver of every vehicle, but I think the question, the ask that I'm coming with tonight is there ongoing traffic studies of the changes in this intersection, and how are we assessing the safety and effectiveness of the new plan? And it sounds like maybe I needed to be at the other meeting today, but I just want to bring this up now because we are concerned to make sure that this is one of the busiest pedestrian spots around our school, and to just make sure that these changes are effective and that they're working. In addition to that, my second question is, are there more plans to enforce things around the schools, like ticketing for illegal turns, failures to yield to pedestrians, speeding? I know we've talked in the past about how it's hard to get officers there to monitor these things, but this really is our busiest intersection. It was stated before that officers are covering more important intersections in town. And I have to say, as a parent of a small person who's crossing these streets, that's really hard to hear. This intersection is really important to us. And the last question that I have was just to clarify the timing. It sounds like officers are staying at the intersection until 9 a.m., which is fantastic. A parent let me know that the crossing guard at Springfield said that sometimes the officer leaves at 3:30, but she is still having to cross kids. If you've ever walked a small person up a hill, they walk really slowly. So sometimes coming up Tuscan, we have stragglers and there's parents walking with not even elementary school kids, but younger preschool siblings. So by the time they're making their way up to that intersection, the officer leaves at 3:30, the crossing guard is staying to cross kids across 2 intersections. I don't know if it's realistic to ask for them to stay past 3:30, but just wanted to bring that up, that was a concern that a parent had reached out to me with. Thank you so much.
Well, Allison, thank you for your questions and great to see you again here in my last meeting. I'm going to yield to Mayor Daffis to answer the first question. He was in attendance in the meeting this morning. I was there for a brief period of time, but had to log off to get to a work meeting. So I'll let him address that first question. Then question 2 and 3 about enforcement and timing the officer. I'll yield that over to Chief Sally to answer those questions, and we'll go from there. So Mayor Daffis.
Thank you. And Allison, it's great to see you. Happy holidays. Thanks for joining us. I wish you could have been at the meeting this morning because we covered this for a good length, actually. And we do have with us Deputy Mayor DeLuca, who chairs the committee, who if Bailey can bring him over, he can report further. So during the meeting, we talked about the intersection, at which point our engineer, Mr. Kittner, whom I think you know at this point, you've interacted with Paul Kittner several times. He reported that the data that he is tracking, the traffic data, since we put these new measures into place, he reported the incident that happened. You know, everything has been going so well, and then this awful thing happens with that large truck. And yes, it jumped the curb, and they were cited for reckless driving or careless driving, I forget which. And that was a whole big incident. But that sort of addresses the issue of the fact that we are tracking the data, the traffic data there, through engineering to see what further adjustments need to be made and to judge the efficacy of the the efforts that we've put into place already. Vic, can you elaborate a little bit further as it relates to that incident and what Paul was able to recommend to us going forward to ensure against something like that?
Yes, thank you. So the truck driver was trying to make a right from Burnett onto Springfield, and for whatever reason decided to go in the oncoming traffic to do that right. I mean, under any condition that should not have occurred. So he wasn't speeding or anything. He just made a conscious decision in order to swing around to the right to go into oncoming traffic, and then he jumped the curb, hit the sign, and hit the tree and what have you. So we were told he received a ticket from the police. The police obviously were there, and and then the truck was moved. That should have not happened, and we haven't had any incident like that. We have looked at the intersection. We've spoken to the school. We've spoken to their facilities folks, their bus people. They're all in favor of it. We've reached out to people at the school itself, and we haven't received any complaints. We have not had major backups. We were concerned about the backups at Boyden and Springfield, but that has not really been any more than normal there. So it seems to be working. It has made that crosswalk so much safer because we don't have that left turn and we don't have cars stacked up there, either trying to make the left turn and everyone getting anxious because it backs up onto Springfield Avenue. So it has really improved that. And what we're going to be doing is making that permanent with some curbing that we're putting in there, which is mountable curbing with some bollards, which are things that come up in the ground. We believe that trucks will still be able to make that turn both ways. And again, there should be no reason why any truck is in the oncoming traffic. A longer term, we're going to be doing Springfield Avenue. We're going to be rebuilding it next year, repaving it and doing some concrete work. We're looking to maybe shave off some of that island by Walgreens there to make that turn a little bit better and widen that intersection. So that's something that we haven't actually designed yet, but that's something that's on the table.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. That's a great narrative. So as you can see, Allison, things are progressing. Let's move on to question 2 and 3, and I'll yield the floor over to Chief Sally.
Okay, so as far as the officer, you said they leave at 3:30. So how late do you think people are crossing after that?
That's a great question. I can certainly look into that.
We can do that.
I'm driving to pick my kids up, so I'm not walking across that intersection, but let me get back to you on that. Take a survey from our parents that are crossing there. I think maybe even just an extra 10 or 15 minutes past the 3:30 might be helpful, but I will certainly circle back to you on that.
Yeah, but also we can do that too as well. We can we can observe the corner. I can do a week with an officer staying there later, and then we can observe how many, how long after that officer is needed. And then we go from there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Was another question? I can't remember the other question.
The second question, you just answered the third question.
Yeah, I was just saying enforcement and the timing officer. So that was the 2 questions.
Enforcement,
Enforcement, and there's people are speeding down Springfield like crazy all the time.
Yeah. So what we started to do is we have been doing details on Springfield Avenue as far as speeding, and so we will continue to do that at various times. So we have been doing that in enforcement. So we'll just continue doing it.
All right. Thank you, Chief. All right. Seeing that there's no one else here from the public, we're all here. We're all fam. I'm going to go ahead and entertain. Before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I want to recognize that Bailey has started to work on, Ms. Barnett started to work on our, back to screen 2, our tribute to Chief Duvall. We will get this done completely by Tuesday. We have to add in a few people's remarks, including my own. So add those in. As well as Mr. Schuster's remarks, which I saw in my notes as well. So we'd add a few more people in, and then we'll go ahead and show everyone on Tuesday that really, when you think about all the things that happened this year, this is a huge blow to our community. One of the biggest, honestly, when you think about Ida and you think about everything, to lose a gentleman who's born and raised Maplewood and dedicated his life to this community. So we will continue to work on this, finalize this, and then share this with the broader community on Tuesday. So thank you, Bailey, for the initial efforts here. Appreciate it. So,
Yeah, of
all
course.
right. Amazing. So I really wasn't sharing it. I just realized I was so many windows. So this is what I wanted to show. This is the initial draft of what Bailey put together regarding Chief Barnett. We have some quotes from some elected officials. We had to add mine in there. I saw Mr. Schuster's remarks are also in my inbox, in my folder. And then also Ms. Kripe, if you're going to say anything, you should add that in tonight, send it in so I can make sure to Ms. Bailey and myself, we'll get it in tomorrow. So amazing. Cool. All right. With that, we're at 8:38. We're before 9:30, Dean. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. And thank you not just for tonight, but thank you for everything. See you soon.
Happy
Night.
holidays.